and get some writing done in the company of friends. It's our special May Day edition, which is entirely meaningless because time has lost all value and definition. But I'm glad to see that so many of you are joining us for this. This is, am I right, the fourth one of these that we've done. And I'm glad to see that in the comments there are a bunch of repeat visitors, so I'm glad you've been getting something out of this. Glad you can make it on with us this Friday. I'm Martin. I'm here in London. It's 8 o'clock our local time. I'm glad to say I'm being joined today, as always, by Shaelin and Jenn. Shaelin, how are you? I hear it looks quite nice and sunny where you are. Where's that?
It is. I'm in Vancouver today, and it is actually so nice out. The weather's super sporadic in Vancouver in the spring, but today we're getting a nice day, so
Well,
I'll
before
take it.
inundated with questions, I think I'll ask the thing on everyone's mind. What is that giraffe behind you?
Oh, the giraffe's name is Matilda.
Okay.
Yeah. My family recently moved here, and my mom saw this giraffe. It was on sale somewhere. She was like, "I want to buy a giraffe, but I feel like I shouldn't." And I was like, "Of course you should buy the giraffe. Like, what are you talking about?" So, yeah, her name's Matilda. She's extremely tall. Yeah.
As giraffes are want to be.
Yeah.
Jenn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Cool. So would you like to take us through how we're going to be running this thing, just so first timers will have an idea?
Yep. So basically, when we decide to start a sprint, both Shaelin and I, as well as all of you folks at home, will just pull up whatever work in progress you have going on. If you need inspiration, there are a variety of generators and prompts and things you can check out at Reedsy. Martin can drop those links in the chat for you guys. Otherwise, just pick up whether if you're drafting, if you're editing, if you are rereading your current work in progress and making notes, if you're world building, whatever you do, whatever you're currently working on to get your book to completion, or short story to completion, whatever we're doing. We work on that for about 20 minutes usually, although sometimes the last one is a 15-minute sprint. When the timer goes off, we all come back on, those of us who are hosting all come back on camera. Obviously, we can't see all of your lovely faces. And you guys share in the chats what kind of progress you made, whether that's word count, number of scenes you went through and edited, any of that stuff. And, encourage each other, ask questions. If you're struggling, let us know. We'll try and help as best we can. And then after a few minutes cool down, we do it all over again.
Cool. Yeah, I posted a link to the Reedsy blog kind of without context on the comments. If you head over there on the top toolbar, you can look for all the tools we have. And in there's character name generators, title generators, all sorts of stuff, and our prompts as well that you can use to pick a prompt to work with. We'll probably start our first sprint in just a few minutes, but I thought we'd take the opportunity to figure out what we're working on today. Shaelin, I know that you're looking forward to doing some rewriting.
I am. I'm doing some editing today. I'm taking kind of a break from my work in progress to rewrite a short story. I got some edits from some friends a little while ago, and then I also realized that the story doesn't make sense because I didn't do research before writing it, and it's about something I know nothing about. So I had to do some inquiry and some digging, and get someone who works in a hospital to tell me how organ donations work. Since my story is about a stolen organ. So, yeah.
I've seen the TV show One Tree Hill, and from what I understand, they get brought in little coolers, and then they get spilled on hospital floors, and then dogs eat them.
I did Google organ cooler. That is in my search history now. So, yeah, I have to make sure my organ heist works correctly. That's what I'm working on today.
One of the people who are joining us is Lee from Los Angeles, saying thank you to the hosts. We have the book ranter, who is just doing one-shots for writing practice, so it's good to see you don't necessarily have to work on something that's going to be a big project. So just a good opportunity to do, get some practice under your belt. Michelle is drafting a third book of a YA urban fantasy trilogy, which is very.
Oh, I'm also writing a third book, so I hear you.
Maybe this is you in a parallel dimension. There's no picture of Michelle. Ooh, this is Renee from a town that I have no idea how to start pronouncing. but glad to see them. It's going to hit about 5 past. I really want to chat to you, Jenn, about the book you're working on, but we might get to that in the first break. But if everybody is here, well, if you join a bit late, doesn't matter. There's some instructions on what you can do if you need instructions in the description. So go down there. As is, it's pretty simple. Just write whatever you like. We're just here just to be together, get some writing done. I'm going to put up my trusty timer that I paid for. I'm going to put 20 minutes on this thing and disappear off. At the end of the 20 minutes, you're going to hear a much more pleasant sound, hopefully, than before. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. I'll see you all at the breaks. 20 minutes.
All right.
Delivery. Hey guys. Cool. Well, that's
Hey.
our first 20 minutes done. How was that for you, Shaelin?
It's pretty good. I can't really say how much I wrote since I just like went through my draft and like fixed a bunch of like random different things. But I feel like it's always good like when you've been procrastinating editing something for a really long time and then actually just start. And then it's like, okay, like this isn't going to be as torturous as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, a lot of times with writing, the hardest part is getting yourself to actually sit down and open your document and actually start it, whether that's editing, planning, starting a brand new story. That's very often the hardest part for me. Once I'm actually into it, it's fun and I enjoy it most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting over that initial resistance.
Yeah, especially when it's something that you think is going to be difficult. Like, I have been putting off editing this story for so long because it's like, I don't have the knowledge background to do this, and it's like a heist story, and so I'm like, I've never done that before. I have no idea how to do this. It's just going to be difficult. So I just have like been putting off editing it because I don't know how. So good to just start doing it and then like just actually figure it out.
Some people are feeding back on how much they got done in that one. Some people missed the train whistle from last week, sadly. But doorbell's kind of fun too. Robert's at 450 words. It's a new chapter with a new character, so hey, that's pretty good pace anyway. More than I've done in this one. Thank you for sharing all this. I'm glad you've all got a little bit done before we move on to the next one. Jenn, I know that you are working on a sequel in your series right now. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about it, because we work together every day, but I haven't actually spoken to you about your series.
Yeah, so I do a superhero series. The premise of the first one is basically just that a comic book artist ends up on a parallel world where she finds out that all her superhero characters are real, except that she's expected to now step in and fill the role of the leader of that group. Um, so that's where the whole thing starts. That's where all the adventure begins. That's the origin story, if you will. And then I have a sequel to that out, and I'm currently writing the third one. And I wanted to make a lot more progress on this a lot earlier, but I had a bunch of things going on in my personal life at the end of 2019. And then I was like, that's okay. I can get through most of the draft most of what I haven't done yet in February and March and April. I had it all planned out. Yeah, the universe had other complications for me, but so I'm chipping away at that as much as I can, making continuous progress on that.
So, I don't know, like some people,
what I've been doing.
like a small minority of people have found this like a massive, creative boom. Yeah, we've got this free time, hooray! Shakespeare did King Lear. Have you found it not so much?
No, there are people, and I'm really envious of them. There are people that in times of stress and difficulty and upheaval can really just lose themselves in their books and their writing. And I really, really wish I was one of those people. For me, if I have a lot going on for just in my head, it's very hard to block it out, get myself into that bubble where I can be creative at the level that I know I can be. So yeah, quarantine has not been my friend.
Yeah.
But I always continue to work on it. And that's really all you can do if you're in that same situation, is just keep trying.
I'm going to say, just in case Shaelin can hear us, you are no longer on this thing, Shaelin. So you may need to refresh your page just to join us again. Or maybe your cat or your dog or Matilda the giraffe has knocked over your laptop. But we'll give her a couple of minutes just to go through that. So, so how have you actually found the whole thing of being like an indie publisher? Like, how much interaction do you have with your readers?
I love it. I try and interact with my readers as much as I can. I always love it when they reach out to me through email or social media or anything like that. It's so much fun seeing what resonates with them and what parts what parts they want to see more of and what parts are really clicking for them. the whole indie publishing process, I'm a huge fan. I personally would be very hard pressed to consider doing traditional publishing, just for the way I like to work, the way I like to release my books, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Hey, Shaelin, you disappeared for a bit.
Hi. That's so weird. It looked like completely normal. Like everything seemed to be working on my screen, so I have no idea what happened.
Yeah, because I think we had that. I was running a webinar the other week, and like someone disappeared, and then they didn't. They thought it was like still going on, and so we were going like, "Hello, please come back." Before we start on with the second one, I would love for you to share what you've been working on over on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so right now we're doing like a fun series on the YouTube channel. It's basically like a developing a book series. So every week, we started last week, we've got a different video on kind of working through developing a different portion of a book. So last week we started with just the concept. This week is on character, so I'll post that right after this. And they're like a lot more depth than our usual videos. They're like 20 minutes each with lots of like exercise and stuff. So kind of the goal is that if you're trying to develop a book, by the end of this series, you'll have basically all the material that you need to start writing. So it's been super fun so far. I've been like developing an idea to do all the exercises myself, so you can see my really chaotic process for doing that. So yeah, if you're trying to like, if you have like a little idea but it's not working, you don't know how to get it working, I hope that this will help, because I know that like sometimes getting a ball rolling with the idea is the initial difficult part.
So what should people do?
I should totally do that for the randomly generated plot that I got yesterday to further, or not yesterday, in the last write-in, to further develop that, because for anyone that wasn't here, I used the plot generator, character name generator, and title generator that Reedsy has to tell me what I was going to write last time, because I just needed a break from what I was actually focusing on. And I really love what it gave me. I really love the beginning that I wrote, but I haven't been able to take the time to develop that because I have to stick with my current project. So I should totally look at your exercises through that video series and run through them for this
follow
particular
along.
one.
And what
It's fun. I went from like, I like started it like with a, like it was good timing that I got an idea for a book basically like a week before filming that series. And it was great because doing that series made me go from having basically nothing to like having developed characters and a setting and a plot arc, when probably otherwise I would just be like, I have a concept and I'll just wait for it to start working.
And what should people do if they want to follow into the series?
Subscribe, check out our channel. The second one is getting posted today, so you don't have that much catch up to do if you don't want to. And also make sure to turn on notifications, because YouTube is weird and doesn't notify you all the time. Yeah.
Okay, let's start this again, but let's do this YouTube thirst trap thing of we're not going to start again until there's 100 likes on this. So if you just do us a favor and just like hit the like button a couple of times, we'll get this thing started in just a second. Okay, I'll put another 20 on the clock. So I see, I know, some small amount of likes, we can get started. Ta-da. All right, fair enough. Cool. Yeah, just take your time, like at your own pace. If both of you are ready, let's go through our second sprint. 20 minutes on the clock.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, thanks for going through that sprint, folks at home. Let us know how that went for you guys. Shaelin, how did you find that sprint?
That one was pretty good. Mine was, I feel like, mostly research, but yeah, just more Oregon research. I don't know.
More Oregon research?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just or Oregon, not the
Oregon.
state of
Okay.
Oregon.
You should know. Maybe that's an idea for something. It's an organ heist in Oregon.
Yeah. I mean, it's not set anywhere specific, so it could be set in Oregon.
And there could be some oregano featuring in there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm realizing a lot of missed opportunities.
And Jenn, how was that?
It was pretty good. I only ended up writing about 200 words that time, partly because I'm at the point in a story where I have to stitch together some of the stuff that I had written out of order in another writing session. So at some point, I do always need to copy paste and do a little bit of transitionary work to make sure that it flows smoothly. But yeah, it was fun. And I also realized that I need to research something too. I need to research how quickly a video can go viral and how many views it can get in the first couple hours. Because if that's not realistic, it's not going to come across as believable to people.
I guess, yeah, it only needs to get onto one thing. Like, yeah, that's an interesting one. Do things get... Before in the past, like, you had to go on BuzzFeed or something, I think, before it goes, like, quickly viral. But these days, I guess, on TikTok, how do things go viral? Just enough likes? Enough likes? It's fine. I'm just, like, showing random people's comments.
I don't know.
Don Silas reckons organs need scaffolding or they could clog vessel openings and cavities. Don't know what that means, but it is an idea.
But it is good to know in case it comes up.
Well, we're going to do our last one in just a minute. But yeah, you guys want to do a Q&A afterwards?
Yeah, we could do a couple questions. Why not?
Yeah. So we'll stick around if you guys are done for this one. Again, like, you don't have to stick around for all these sprints. It's just an opportunity. We're here every other week. If you just want to dip in, join us for get some writing done. That's great. You know, some folks can get as few as like 50 words in a sprint, or some folks are getting over like 500. Both are good. We're just getting, you know, into the creative spirit and, you know, gaining a bit of momentum that we wouldn't have otherwise. Danielle says, rewrote 5 words, trying to rewrite the subtitle. Oh, okay, of the book. We have Haley somehow wrote 300 words about a river.
Nice.
I feel that.
Some people are asking, oh, some folks are working on a story prompt. Cool. Well, yeah, if we're all kind of good and we've all taken a break, maybe we just crack on with the last one, maybe a short 15-minute one.
Yeah, I'd be good for a slightly shorter one.
Anything's fine by me.
Cool. Awesome. All right, folks. Well done for sticking with us so far. We'll just go for a last little push. But stick around afterwards. We'll have a bit of a Q&A. You can ask Shaelin or Jenny any questions you have related to writing, or you can ask them about their books or about Shaelin's new series. Anywho, 15 minutes on the clock. Oh, just wait. I better show this timer on the screen. Okay. And here we go. Enjoy. Okay, and that's time. How's that final one?
Pretty good. All right.
Good.
Cool. Yeah, like I guess, are you sort of someone who comes out like hot at the door, and then the further it goes on, it becomes a little bit harder? Jenn, right?
Not usually, no. With the sprints, I've been finding that I've actually done better in like the second and third ones than the first ones. It takes my brain a while to transition sometimes if I'm getting started later in the day.
Okay. So are you are you by your nature like a morning writer or an evening writer?
I If I have the whole day to myself, I usually like to work on and off throughout the whole day, but I have to get started in the morning. Otherwise, it's really difficult for me to keep going later.
Cool. Well, we're just going to stick around here. If you guys have any questions, do feel free to ask. If you just want to chat with each other, that is also reasonable and fine. We just ask if you just drop us a like. While the questions come in, Shaelin, how's yeah? So, at what point of your actual revision process are you? Are you like sort of deep into it?
I mean, so this story, it's a pretty short story. Like the first draft was only like 2,000 words, I think. Um, so I had like written it and revised it myself, and then I'd given it to my workshop group. And then we'd done a little workshop, and so I had notes from them. So this was kind of like I'd thought about what I wanted to do with the story, but I hadn't actually started like doing it until today. Um, I kind of like what I usually do, at least, or what I did for this story is I like had gone through and I'd added notes for myself everywhere that like I wanted to make a change or like needed to add something. So I had gone through and I'd like made all these markers for myself, but I hadn't actually like revised it or added anything. So I'm kind of, I would say like early in this stage of the editing process. Like I did my self edits earlier, but this is like I'm pretty early in the post critiquing editing phase, I guess.
Hmm. Cool. I've just been following a lot of the comments in the sidebar going on during that last one. A lot of folks like throwing around ideas for names. I think one of the writers here was having trouble picking a name for someone. How important is it for you to pick a name? Do you have like placeholder names that you sort of just put in first and then come back to, Jenn?
So for me, it depends on how important the character is and what role they're playing. Um, I definitely like to have at least a first name for my protagonist before I'm doing anything because it gets really awkward to have placeholders for somebody that central, especially if you're writing in third person where that's the primary way that you're referring to the character. But I use placeholder names all the time for so many other characters. Definitely.
I'm kind of like I think like I'm one of those people who like find names really important because like I never change my characters' names. And like I never have placeholders. Like once a character is named, it stays the same because for me like how I understand the character from like a personality standpoint is kind of influenced by what their name is. And so if I change it, it like changes how I see the character and like who they are. Um, so the only time I ever change a character's name is if I feel like something isn't working. Like if I gave the character a name initially, but I never really like figured this character out and like something's not clicking, then I'll change their name because I need like a fresh start and I need to like redraw them somehow. Um, but like yeah, anytime someone like reads something I wrote and they're like, "Oh, I think you should change this character's name," I'm like, "That's not happening.
Yeah,
It can't. It's impossible. It
I
will
don't know.
never happen."
This guy is behaving a lot like a Gary right now, so I don't know.
Yeah.
We have some thanks coming around. Thank you for making this available. Uh,
Very welcome.
oh God, it's really tough
You're
to pick on
welcome.
anything. But we had someone ask, I think it was Kit Kat, asked, in what genres do you sort of usually find yourself writing best in?
So I'm definitely under anywhere under the sci-fi fantasy umbrella. I like epic fantasy. I like sci-fi. I obviously like superheroes, which is another subset. I've played around with steampunk ideas. Anything that is like over the top, fantastical, just wild and imaginative, I'm down for it.
I'm kind of like, I guess, like somewhat the opposite. Like, I find myself usually writing like literary fiction, like, you know, stuffy academic type stuff.
I really like literary fiction, but I just don't do it very often. I'm much more drawn to flashy and
That's fair. I like even though I like literary fiction, I find that I'm more and more drawn to like writing literary fiction that like has some kind of weird element, like is surreal in some way or something. Like I used to like feel like I had to like be fully in the realism area, and now I'm like, it could be anything. Like if it wants to be kind of horror, it can be kind of horror. If it wants to be like weirdly magical, like it can do that. Like kind of just whatever. Like the story I'm writing right now is like a heist. I have no idea what genre it is, honestly.
I guess it could be a high genre. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question here from Angela Palmer I put in a bit earlier because it would disappear otherwise. How did you find a workshop group that worked for you? I know Jen's in a workshop. Shaelin, are you in any sort of groups?
I am in a workshop. My workshop is so great. So my workshop, I just found them because they were in my like university like writing cohort. And a group of us from that cohort were like, we want to keep workshopping because this is great and we work really well together. So my workshop is about like 4 or 5 people, depending on who is available at the time, just that I met at school. Because once you meet people that you critique well with, like never let that go. If you find people who like get your writing and really get how to like critique your work and vice versa, hold on to that forever. Never let them go. Yeah.
Mine was honestly just a writing workshop that was advertised at my local library, which up until the pandemic is where we were meeting. So I have that group that I meet with, and then I also just have a number of individual writing friends that I have met through social media mostly. And so we are not a group because they don't all know each other, but they definitely help me out as well.
We've got another question up here. Question: at what point do you edit your story? Do I wait until the end? Jenn, you want to take this one first?
So, I mean, it definitely depends on many, many factors. As a general rule of thumb, yeah, it's good to wait until the end because you can easily get distracted and end up overworking the same paragraph or page 1,000 times and not moving forward. That said, there's also the kind of writer where if you don't fix an issue when you see it, it will just bother you and distract you until you have to break down and fix it before you can actually move forward. So that's something that you really have to kind of feel out depending on the issue itself and depending on your personality. But definitely if you're getting distracted by the concept of editing, you don't have to edit as you go at all. It's definitely absolutely fine to just write it, get the story out. Don't worry about if it's perfect at all. You will have plenty of time to fix it later.
Yeah, I think like my recommendation is usually if it's your first book and you've never written a book before, try to just write the whole draft and not stop to edit it, because a lot of people like that's why they never finish a book. But once you know you have written a book and like you know you can do it, you might have the confidence in yourself to diverge from just drafting the whole way through. Like I find for something short, like for a short story, I would rather just get the whole draft done, like throw it against the wall, see what sticks, and then like fix it later, because it's like there are only 4 or 5 puzzle pieces. But for a novel, I don't know if I want to incorrectly assemble 200 puzzle pieces when I know that I'm going down the wrong path a little bit. So for a novel, I like to fix as I'm editing, or edit as I'm drafting. But that's like, yeah, it's super personal, and like if it doesn't work for you, like it's not necessary or anything.
We have a question here. I had to bring it up because, hey, it's a plug for Reedsy. Tara McClure, you may remember her from such comments as, would you recommend getting an editorial assessment done? And if so, would you generally, what is the general price an editor will quote for a 1,000-word children's picture book? As the show here in the company, I'd say it is a good sort of option. An editorial assessment is basically when you work with a developmental editor. Usually, if you work for them like lock, stock, and barrel, they'll read through your book and they'll sort of provide like a report on it and go through the manuscript and mark it up and give not quite like sort of line level critiques and edits, but to sort of show you where things can be improved. And it's a lot of structural, character, story type stuff. An editorial assessment is sort of the first half of that, where you give it to an editor, they'll come back with a report, and they'll sort of show you and guide you through what your next stage of revisions would be. Like an editorial assessment is something you probably want to get to once you don't know where your book is going. Once you've done as much as you can with your manuscript, you've shared it with some within your group, with critique partners. And at that point, a professional will be able to go in there and show you exactly, where it's going. You mentioned here a children's picture book. There's no sort of like hard and fast price for it. The per word rate for like a children's book editor is probably higher because, the projects are so much smaller. You mentioned 1,000 words, which for a children's picture book, if you're thinking like under 3s or 4s, is a bit on the long side already. Picture books, like for like super early readers, tend to be about 500 words or less. So the first thing you want to do is probably find a way to slim that down before you hand it up over to an editor, because if they see this is a children's book that's 1,000 words long, they might sort of get the impression it's going to be hard work because you haven't really done your research there. But yeah, in general, an editorial assessment is a great sort of first entry into working with an editor that's not super cost intensive. But thank you for this opportunity to let us shill just for a little bit. Give me a second and I'll find any other questions around here. I know I saw one a bit earlier asking if there's any books you recommend on writing. Shaelin?
I've talked about this before. It's actually just an essay. It's not a full book, but there's a craft essay that I swear by called Revising Your Prose for Power and Punch. It's by David Michael Kaplan. You can probably just find it online if you Google it. And it is the most game-changing, like in terms of line editing, it changed how I write. It's the only reason I know how to line edit. And it's fantastic. And it just gives you like probably about 20 like really easy to implement like line editing tips. So I would definitely recommend that. It has changed my writing more than any other craft text that I've ever read.
Jenn, any big titles on your list?
I haven't read a writing craft book in a really long time, actually. I have a big list on my TBR of things that look really fascinating, but I haven't actually sat down and read one for quite some time.
Same. Like, I normally don't read full craft books, so I feel you.
So one question that DM came up with is, what is indie publishing? How does it differ from self-publishing? It does not. When you self-publish, indie publishing sounds a bit more cool. It doesn't come with that old school stigma that is attached to self-publishing sometimes. But it's independent publishing. Sometimes that means you could be with like a really small press, but in most cases, it means that you, the author, are putting it out and you're doing a lot of the marketing and the sort of legwork behind it. Cool. I'm just going to take one more because I've done a bunch of kitchen prep and it's going to be 10 o'clock by the time I have dinner. But we'll see if we can fish out one more. Don Silas asks, do you have to read books to write books?
You probably want to consider it. I mean, like, I know a lot of writers who are really slow readers and like they don't read more than 5 or 10 books a year and like maybe even less. But like, I still think even if you read really slowly, you probably want to take the time to still read, because I feel like it's hard to know what's missing in your work unless you're reading other people. I find, and it will probably just teach you more than like literally anything else.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. And then especially if you write like genre and everything, you'll want to try to keep up to date with like the kinds of trends in your genre, the kinds of ideas that have been covered already. If you're rehashing the same, trope that has been done 20,000 times, if you want to target that trope, that's fine, but you should know that it's been done all across the genre already. So there's definitely a benefit to there, even just beyond the craft, even just on a marketing kind of side.
Cool. On that note, I think we'll be doing another one of these in just a few weeks. We always have fun things happening on Reedsy's YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. And before we leave, maybe just give us a like, see if we can push us over 100 likes. But, no pressure. But thank you so much for everyone who's still stuck in with us here. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you again to Shaelin and Jenn. If you want to find their books, it's Shaelin Bishop and Jenn Gott, 2 N's, 2 T's. Search for them online and get their books. Fantastic. Thank you both so much. I'll see you in the office.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.